Can you say hard hats, folks? Hard hats, lunch pail, steel toe boots?
Anything short of a championship this year is a failure.
Look at this boomer right here.
You've just got so much talent here.
Somebody said we need to apologize for Jalen.
Can I call it John? What are we apologizing for? What did we say? What did we do?
What's going on? Sherrod Blakely in the house, John Zannis as well. Bobby Manning and Noa Dalzell are in D.C., fresh off their White House field trip with the Celtics, who visited outgoing President Joe Biden at the White House yesterday for a ceremony commemorating last year's NBA title. And then the Celtics forgot that they had a game tonight. And, it was one of those, you show up wearing a Celtics uniform, that should be good enough sort of games, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the only guy that you even contemplate, man, we need to play a decent game. Jordan Poole's going to get up points. Kuzma's going to do his thing. But other than that, you're not exactly, sifting through the scouting report thinking, damn, we got to worry about no one. This was one of those games. And you're going to have 3 or 4 of them throughout the season where you basically have to show up to win the game. And that's exactly what the Celtics did. I didn't think there was anything special they did in this one. Watching this game, the Celtics could have scored 100. They scored 108. They could have scored 188 if they really, really, really locked in. This is a bad Wizards team in every sense of the word. And the Celtics did what you're supposed to do. And you would have thought it would have been an ideal cup game because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to run up the score, which, again, we'll talk about that later. But the Celtics, they let them hang around for a little bit. But ultimately, this game never felt as though the outcome was in question. It was just a matter of how many points would the Celtics win by, not if they would.
Yeah. I mean, it's I don't want to say it, but it's a borderline unlosable game, right? Like
it's hard.
It's really hard to lose this game.
You're going to have to make great anti-effort to lose this game. So
I wish I could, I wish I could muster the old John Zannis energy, from a couple of years ago, but I can't because, like I said, I used to get mad at these games because I thought it was emblematic of a team that had issues motivating themselves and, couldn't flip the switch and would go through streaks. And I just don't see it's not the case. It's just you're going to sleepwalk through some games during the course of the year. And this was one of them. I think it's clear. I mean, the NBA Cup only matters so much. It's like you're not like, oh, we're playing bad in an NBA Cup game. You're still walking into this building and thinking it's the Wizards.
It's the Wizards. Yeah.
It's the Wizards. And we're playing on a pink court and how seriously can I take this, And that's kind of how I thought it happened. But, we'll run through some of the headlines. We'll talk about the point differential thing, which isn't great. We'll talk about Malcolm Brogdon's revenge game, or at least what he was hoping it would be. I think Malcolm's still mad. I think
yeah.
He's mad.
I think just watching him play and just the body language and just really, if I'm him, I'd still be a little salty about that too. I mean, think about this though. Think about this for a second. You not only do you join an iconic franchise like the Celtics, you win freaking 6th Man of the Year. You embrace a role that, to be, if we're being honest, he should have been coming off the bench. Malcolm he's a legitimate starter in the NBA. He embraces this role, does a great job in that role, isn't at peak health conditions in the playoffs and wasn't nearly as impactful in the postseason as he was in the regular season because of his health. And his reward has been sent to the Himalayas of the NBA, aka Portland. And then you wind up in freaking Washington with the Wizards, 2 of arguably the worst franchises in the current state of the NBA. And so whenever you see the Celtics, hell yeah, you're pissed because it's a reminder of where you were and where you're at. It's like, I mean, you went from being like Ruth Chris to like the crappiest fast food joint, and you're supposed to be happy that you're eating
Steak
there?
and shake. Yeah.
It's more like it's not. It's like low budget steak and shit. I can't even.
I did that because of his Indiana roots.
Right.
That's like the only place I've had it. Anyway, I mean, if I didn't know better, I think the Celtics were intentionally punishing the people that they did remove from their roster to build this championship roster. You look at, I mean, they didn't do it to Grant Williams. Actually, he did it. He left on his own,
Right.
sort of. He went to Dallas, but Grant ends up in Charlotte. Poor Rob ends up in Portland. Malcolm ends up in Washington eventually. Like all of these poor guys, they're just in Siberia, basketball Siberia right now. But Malcolm's big mad for sure, and you could feel that there too. But there's plenty. There's still things to talk about. Like absolute, dog shit Jayson Tatum game. There's no way around it. Bad. But then again, you look up and it's like, well, he was on the floor when other people were doing work and ends up a freaking team high plus 20. So the eye test tells you he's terrible. But I mean, he almost snuck out one of those crap ass triple doubles, right? With like 6 of 19 shooting, 0 of 10 from 3, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, So, one of those games for him. Thank goodness for JB, who when things weren't falling, and look at these. Tatum and Brown combined 3 for 23 from 3-point range. That's a grisly number. And they just kept shooting. Brown took 13 of them.
13.
But thank goodness Brown was like, that's a gross stat line, 11 for 27. But that's all the 3-point shooting. When it mattered, he put his head down. He took it to the basket. He got tough buckets and what he needed to do, 11 rebounds, 5 assists. So, Brown was what they needed when they needed it. But I'm doing this without Bobby. The game turned on Luke Cornett and Xavier Tillman to a lesser degree. It really did. On these, you play the game without Horford. Kata gets the start. You've done bad when you start the first half and not the second half. And that's what happened here. Because Luke gave them really good minutes in the second quarter and was rewarded by the start. And they flipped him. And he came out and he started with that, with everybody else. And Kata came off the bench. Kata was a little bit better in the second half, but not a great game for him. Again, back-to-backs here. So, yeah, I'm going to give Luke his props here. Luke, they needed that Luke energy tonight, and they got it.
Yeah, of the three-headed monster that they have at the center position, and that's Luke, X, and Kata. Luke was by far the best of the trio.
Yeah,
when he was on the floor, he absolutely, did certainly more positive things than the other two guys. I thought Tillman had a golden opportunity to kind of reemerge in this race. He was 0 for 2, and they were wide open / lightly contested shots that he should have knocked down. The one bright spot I thought Tillman had. He had one defensive series where he got switched out on Jordan Poole and did a good job, forced Jordan to take a really tough shot. Jaylen Brown came back on the next possession, got a bucket at the rim, and that was pretty much the highlight, I thought, for his X-Man. And Kata, marginally better in the second half, but because he played so crappy in the first, there really wasn't a high threshold that he had to meet to be better. This was just one of those games. You start going through the box score and even from the eye test of actually watching it, the Celtics just didn't need their A game or B game. And I would say C- game was good enough to win this one.
Yeah, it was. And, again, for those who care, I'm trying to not care, I don't want to be a cynic about the NBA Cup stuff. I can't actually care, but I know when they get into it, they do care a little bit more as time goes on. But
I don't know, John. I don't know. I think the care ends after like the first or second game. Then it's just like, if we don't go to Vegas, okay, what's our goal this year? Win a freaking NBA title. Let's put it this way. I think the cup isn't going to matter to players until they start seeing some type of connection between winning the cup and doing some things in the postseason. Then
Abby reported something that I think people think about, and that was a $514,000 share. If I heard that right, that's insane.
for guys who like they really need the money.
That's real money. I don't care who you are. That's real money.
It is, but but the thing about it, John, with these guys, is that really going to make them play any harder? Probably not.
I don't know. I like money a lot.
No, you and I, that's a different story. I mean, we're smacking the parquet, going all in inline defense. Yeah. But
I don't care. I don't care how many Achilles I tear. Yeah,
I don't know if Jayson Tatum is thinking like, damn, we really got to ball out so I can get that $500,000. No, I don't.
No, he doesn't. And like I said, is that we'll start. We'll start on the down because it's a frustrating game, but it's like I'm not making a big deal about it. But it's the approach thing. I don't get it. I don't like the idea of cheating the game. Like I hate that. Like just sit. Like that's what I don't get. It's like I'd rather load manage people and let guys go out there who are going to play than have people not super into it. And like this type of energy is always annoying to me. And like you can always tell it by like, especially in a Tatum game, how much is he driving? And the answer is 0. Like in the not really a lot. Maybe a forced issue or two, at some point, but not a lot. And you can always kind of tell there, which is like, I'm going to hope that these threes go down. And then when they don't, that's when you end up in these games. But it's when you're just settling for threes, not working for the threes and not getting all the threes that you want, within the flow of things, when you're just settling, and they're not falling. And then you're like, oh shit, now I have to try. And that's kind of what they found themselves in a little bit today. It was just, like I said, lazy. Like, isn't it better to show up and say, let me just try for a couple of quarters, put this thing away early, and then we can kind of coast and it's Geno time the rest of the way? I hate where you have to, you're playing starters deep into the fourth quarter, especially now in these games, because you're trying to get the point differential thing going, which again is another asinine thing. But I don't see the point in that. Like, why come and walk through it, sleepwalk through it?
No, this was as Jayson Tatum once described, this was like a Tuesday in Charlotte kind of game where it's on the schedule. You've got to play the game, and damn it, I'm just going to be out there because people came to see me play or see us play. They did not come to see you play like crap. They came to see you actually play well. That's really what they came to see. But the Celtics and Tatum, I think he fully understands that a really good Tatum game, it'd be nice if I played well, but they don't need me to play well to beat this team. They just need me to have stretches where I remind everyone why I'm one of the top 5, top 10 players in the game. And Jaylen took what the defense gave him. I mean, and they were giving him threes, and he realized, I got to give the game a little bit more than just missed threes. And so he became a little bit more aggressive. I think he was like 3 for 13, as you mentioned, from three-point range, which means he was, just doing the math real quick, he was 8 for 14 inside the three-point line. So, and he was getting pretty much what he wanted off the dribble at the rim. So this is a hard game to, I think, as a viewer, to really be excited about, and as a player, to be engaged in. I mean, I thought about Tatum and the whole Tuesday Charlotte thing, and I also thought about something Jaylen Brown at his kind of offhanded remark about certain games Peyton Pritchard or someone else off the bench could just kind of carry them and be that guy. I thought this was one of those games that it should have been one of those games where Peyton Pritchard or Sam Hauser actually had a pretty good game. Now I think about it, shooting the ball. But this was just get the win and don't get hurt. That's really what this was about. But and the point that you alluded to earlier, John, about the point differential, it by far is the one thing about this whole cup crap that I think is just absolute ass. The fact that you're telling these guys you have to run up the score. That's what you're saying. As long as point differential is part of the equation and who moves on and who doesn't, you're going to have this. We saw it last year. And remember, the Celtics, when they were going into that last game before, the cup standings were done, they played Chicago, and they basically ran up the score in that game. Yep. And they're going to have to do it again. And I think for players, it's a little bit uncomfortable and awkward because it goes against so much of what you've been taught about the game. The league loves to put this moniker about, respecting the game. How the hell does running up the score Respect the game. There's no respect. In fact, it's just the opposite of respecting the game. You're basically saying we're better than you, and now we're going to rub that shit in your face how much better than you.
The Celtics scored 11 points in the last 46 seconds of this game.
Insane.
To get it up to that 12-point differential, which again is going to matter, but it is really silly and stupid. Like, I can't believe it's like this is like, my daughter's soccer tournament sort of bullshit. Like, I don't understand doing it. I'm not like, again, I can't muster that much because I can't muster enough energy to care about any of it. Like, I really can't. But the Bulls, scoreboard watching here for the people that do care about this, the Bulls are up a bit here. So if the Celtics beat Chicago, likely they're going to advance here. We'll see. Cleveland would have to beat Atlanta too. But again, things are kind of looking better for the Celtics here, assuming Chicago holds off Atlanta. And let's see. It's an 18-point game with 8 minutes to go here.
Yeah.
So if that happens, they're kind of I wouldn't say a lock, but they're in pretty good position here with the Bulls win if they pull it off. So that's where we are in the Cup standings. Couple things outside of we mentioned Cornette, and we'll get into it again when Bobby gets involved a little bit later. Good to see Sam Hauser hit some threes. I was definitely getting a little bit worried, there. But he stepped in and he did okay.
He was definitely due.
Yeah, he was due. He needed that. But what do you do? Yeah, I think this is back to what we talked about with the Cornette thing. And I have to applaud Bobby's maturity the last show that we did, where he had
tremendous restraint on his part.
He had a chance to jump on Luke, and then after to jump on Keita, and he didn't. And afterwards, we had a conversation on our text thread, and he was like, "I'm glad I didn't jump down Luke's throat." He's like, "Things have gotten ridiculous with Celtics fans the way they're going," and he's right. Like, we're so quick to just bury somebody. So I was watching Keita again, and it's like, it's so close to not bad, but he's just doing, it's like, Scal called it out a couple of times. Like, he's there, and all he has to do is just not take one extra step towards a guy and just drop a little bit, or meet the guy at the rim, or not overplay it here and slide back into his guy. He's always just one step out of position, and that puts him in a bad spot and ends up with negative plays. He's just almost overplaying everything by just a little bit, and he's just getting out of sorts, and he looks like he's completely out of position and lost. And I don't think it's as bad as it looks, but he's just, and I said, I do think he was a little bit better in the second half, but he's had a rough couple of games here.
Yeah, but you know what? The more I watch him play and the more I see him make those subtle but definitely noticeable mistakes and miscues, it reminds me of the first couple of years where Rob Williams was getting to play. Rob would pick up silly fouls. You would see the athleticism.
It's very simple.
He would
similar.
Yeah, it would be just very minor things that if did a little this, a little that, a little more of this, a little less of that, it would be a game changer. And we saw Rob, in his last year in Boston, kind of put it together and was one of the best defenders in the NBA. And arguably, as good, if not better, than Marcus Smart, who was the Defensive Player of the Year that year. So Keita, he does remind me of like a young Rob Williams from the standpoint of being a play away from being a great player out there. And by great, I just mean a great fit for what the Celtics need from him at that position. He's never going to be as good as Tatum or Brown or any of those guys, but he can be a great player in the role that they have carved out for him if he just cuts back on a little this, little that. And you can see that. And if you're the Celtics, it's part of the reason why I want to keep playing him and not necessarily play Luke, because I think Luke is who he is. He's not going to get appreciably better. He's not going to get significantly worse. He's just kind of Luke Cornette. This is what you get. Keita shows clear, undeniable room to get better. And the only way he's going to get better is he's got to keep playing. You got to throw him out there. It's something that we've talked about before. Guys don't get better watching the game be played. They get better by playing in the games. And that's what you're starting to see with Kata. He's going to have games where he's going to figure it all out and look like the best thing since ever. Yeah. And then other games where he's going to, like tonight, where he's going to remind us, oh, yeah, this is like really the first time he's actually playing somewhat regular minutes out there.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not Rob. I think it's like, when like, the evil, like doctor, people in sci-fi movies try to make clones and like, and they're in these vats of goo and like they look kind of like the thing that you want, but they're a little jacked up. That's kind of like what Kata is. He's like a kind of a jacked up version of Rob. Like he's not all the way there, like they didn't quite get Rob, but it's like a version of it. And like I said, step slow, not nearly as explosive, doesn't get off his feet as quickly as Rob does. But he's got elements of it. Even some of his things with his passing and his tap outs, he actually has a bit of an IQ. He's just, like I said, just kind of a little bit in his own way, just a hair. And it's like, it looks close. It looks close. He'll never be Rob. Rob was a special, different type of dude, at least the height of Rob. That's a hard thing to replicate. But again, you're trying to get a little piece of that magic there. And I'm still glad that they're using him, and I'm glad they're not giving up on him, because I really do believe it's not an either or. It's a who's either. It's almost like a hot hand, even though nobody's ever getting hot. But it's a matchup. Who we feeling today? Who's playing better with the rotations that we're using them in? That's really all it comes down to. Just wasn't his night, but like that Kornet spark was definitely real. I'm happy for him. This is another conversation we were having earlier. If Bobby didn't elevate Kornet beyond where he needed to be, we'd sit here and celebrate.
We love Luke.
What? Because I don't want to say bad things about Luke. I love Luke. I really do. I love the guy. I think he's funny as hell. I just think he's a great teammate. I think they love having him on there, and I like his contributions. So like, it's hard to not like, spoiler alert, Luke's getting my brownie tonight because he was awesome.
No, that's legit. But the problem is that, Bobby has a tendency to elevate him to a status that there's no way in hell he should have. Luke's a good player, but he's not anywhere close to the phenomenal talent that Bobby sometimes elevates him to. And that's where we have issues. Because I do like the role that Luke plays for this team. I do like the fact that he's very comfortable in that role. And you rarely feel as though Luke is out there trying to do more than he's capable of doing. That rarely ever happens. But at some point, you're going to need guys, who can elevate their play in certain moments, in certain situations. And Luke, he's just a steady Eddie guy. He just kind of keeps the ship from sinking. And that's really the role that they've kind of needed to play with Porzingis out. They just need guys that can keep everything somewhat stable going forward. But having said that, the Celtics are smart enough to know that you still have to have players that you develop along this journey. And with Kata, you have a perfect opportunity to continue his development by getting him out there playing some. And in order to do that, that means you're not going to play Luke as much. And that's what we're starting to see a little bit more of, of late. But I give Mazzulla a lot of credit. He's smart enough to recognize that this particular game, this particular matchup, Kata just isn't a good fit for what we need to do to get this win. My guy Jalen is not playing great. Tatum is not playing great. We need someone to help us just stabilize things before they get too out of hand, and we find ourselves in a real dogfight. So in comes Luke.
I liked it. Again, you never know what you need until you get it. And in this case, what you needed was Luke, and you didn't know it. You didn't know it going in, but that's what you needed. We're gonna take a little pause here as we wait for some of our post-game sound to come in from DC. We've got a couple of reporters out there. Bobby has spoken to Malcolm Brogdon. We'll hear from Malcolm in a little bit, and we'll also get Bobby and Noah on the show. Also, we do want to tell you about one of our sponsors here on the Garden Report, and that is Built. And attention to all you renters out there. If you haven't heard of Built, you're about to thank me. Earning points on rent is now a reality when you pay your rent through Built. You don't even have to check with your landlord to start earning points that you can use towards flights, hotel stays, fitness classes, and even your next rent payment. Built has changed the game by letting renters earn high-value points on rent and around their neighborhood. Now, there's no cost to join Built, and as a member, you earn valuable points on rent on your everyday spending. Rent and on your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, even ones you haven't heard of. Over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world you can redeem your Built points towards. Points can be redeemed towards a future rent payment and unique experience that only Built members can access. So if you're not earning points on your rent, my question's why not? And honestly, that's what it boils down to is you're paying it anyway. Why not earn points? And that's what you can do here with Built. So start earning points on your rent that you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/garden. That's joinbilt.com/garden. Make sure to use the URL right there so they know we sent you. Once again, it is joinbuilt.com/garden to start earning points on your rent payments today. And again, there's literally no reason not to do this. Check it out. If you are paying rent, no reason not to earn points that you could use towards other things that you're going to need money for. Back to the game itself. And again, let me see here. I'm just checking in our stuff. So here we are. This is where it's interesting is you're kind of stuck here with the 3 games. You're stuck with this NBA Cup thing and the 3 games in 4 nights. And like they kind of are running counter to one another because you got to rest in a normal stretch where you had this, you would rest people. I know you've got Minnesota coming up and that's fun. And then you've also, which one's first?
Minnesota's on Sunday.
Minnesota Sunday. And then you've got another Cup game Monday. So
I think that's the Chicago game, I believe.
That's Chicago. Yeah. So like you've got back-to-backs and you got to like go out and like play really hard against the worst team on the second night of a back-to-back where it would have been understandable to sit a bunch of your starters, but the league doesn't want you to sit starters because it's a Cup game. If you're going to schedule these things, why are you scheduling it like this? Why are you doing this? 3 games, 4 nights, 2 of them Cup games. Like, why?
Yeah, the only thing that I can think of is that
separate it. Yeah.
If you're defending NBA champions, you want to create a level degree of difficulty. But the problem with that thinking, though, John, is that you kind of want to see the Celtics in Vegas for this thing. If you're the NBA, you really want your defending NBA champion to be among the teams that is competing for this cup. It gives it a different level of credibility.
Clippers. It's Clippers. I got it wrong. It's wrong.
Clippers?
I thought it was Chicago Monday.
Okay. Even still, it's still a crappy.
Then it's a gap. So bad criticism. I thought the Bulls was Monday. Then they have a gap for the final game, and that's on Friday. It's my bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
The bottom line is that they just it's not ideal the way that this whole thing is set up. And again, I go back to the whole point differential being one of they need to figure out something different than that. It's just a bad look when you got teams.
Easy, Joseph, take it easy, buddy.
Okay, Joseph. We'll just call him Joseph Perfect Palmieri.
Right. Relax, buddy. We got it wrong. It's okay.
And you're perfect, Joseph. You're perfect.
We got it wrong.
We got it wrong. It's just not ideal that you got to run up the score in order to get to Vegas.
Yeah. If Bobby's dying to get to Vegas.
I know he is.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with that one.
Good luck with that one. Anyway, we don't give him enough love, but we will talk about we're going to bring back Brown here. And again, we mentioned the box score as well. But he started the game kind of the same way Tatum started the game, but then something definitely clicked for him a little bit where he did get that whole like, wait a second, I'm going to do something now. And he did. And, it was very much kind of like, I'm just going to go at these guys.
Yeah.
And I mean, he did it with his drives, but the tough shot making again is insane. That last fall away that basically iced the game there before that wave of free throws was filthy.
But that is big boy basketball right there. I mean, I think Jalen just realized, and I think he knew that going into the game, that at any point, just take over, go to the hole. They physically can't defend you. And you look at most of what Jalen, the damage that he did, it was basically using his strength, just, pretty average ball handling, dribble drive, finish at the rim. And they couldn't stop him because he was just physically superior to pretty much every wing defender that they put in his way. So I give him credit for just figuring out to keep it simple. I mean, that's the thing about teams like Washington and teams that are kind of at the bottom. If you just simply play the game at its most fundamental level, you're going to win with comfort. I mean, I'm 6'6" strong. He's 6'8" weak. Dribble drive, finish at the rim, rinse, recycle, repeat. That's it.
Yeah.
Not complicated at all. So,
okay. So I missed a portion of this thing. Joe almost got to set it up for me. There was a Tillman technical. There, what did he get mad about? Missoula on Tillman. Jackson, you got to set me up here. I don't know what I'm tossing to. Joe on his technical. Is that what the soundbite is about? Okay.
Yeah.
This is Joe. That was on Jalen's. Where Jalen didn't get a foul call. Is that right? Where Joe got really hot and went after the refs. Was that the play there? I think when he got his tech, is that what happened? He got super fired up. Sherrod, yeah.
Yeah, I believe so. And that
JB went to the hole, right? And then he got fired up.
I thought Joe was going to get tossed.
Yeah. So here he is talking about that, and then also Tillman's contributions. I got the two things messed up there, but I remember that the technical there on the JB stuff. And here's Missoula.
For the first time in a while, it came in and gave you guys some energy. Yeah. What made you go to him, and what did you see from him?
Yeah, I mean, I just thought, he's been working hard, and I felt like the game needed something different. And those guys were always ready, and we wanted to be a little bit more switching. And the last time we played them, we played him and Luke together, and he did some great things on the defensive end, especially in the Valanciunas minutes. So I just kind of wanted to win those minutes in the fourth quarter, and to credit to him, just kind of working hard, being ready, and I thought he'd give us some good stuff.
Joe, when you picked up the tech in the second half there, what were you frustrated with in that moment? And
I thought it changed the energy in the arena. Did you feel that?
Yeah. Well, I was gonna ask, in a moment like that,
you see what I did?
Try to pick one up to energize the guys. Would you even think about getting ejected to energize the team in a spot like that?
It wasn't really about energizing the team. I think it was just manipulating the environment. I thought it's kind of what the environment needed at the time, and you just have to make those calls from time to time. So really, I thought the team was. We were playing pretty good. It wasn't like I needed to do that, but I felt like it was a way to manipulate the environment.
Look at me, Mr. Manipulator, Joe Manipulator Missoula.
That was great.
I gave the game what it needs. That's all he really needed to say. It was like vintage Paul Pierce. I'm just giving the game what it needs.
He was did you get that, Bobby?
You got it, Bobby. Talking to you. You get that. That was great. I did not anticipate that would be how Joe would handle that question. That was great.
Yeah, that
was really good. I think Joe and Joe, without saying it, said it, and that is this was a low energy game. This was a game where they had to manufacture that fire because of the opponent. Just because of just how this whole weekend has been. I mean, it's been a love fest. I mean, you're hanging out the freaking White House. That's a very cool thing to do. And I think you made a joke about it earlier. They kind of took this as if this was a vacation, as if this was like a weekend getaway, and forgot that you actually have a basketball game to play and win.
Yeah.
I give the game what it needs. Joe Manipulator Missoula.
The funny thing about that was it was kind of I'm playing off this comment. It's like, you see what I did there, Bobby? Did you like that?
Look at me, Bobby. Look at me. You see what I do? This is what I do, Bobby.
I don't know about fraud here. I do think he's got the media on a string now.
Oh, yes.
He can definitely do no wrong. Because You won a title. What are you going to do here?
That's the credit. That it's like when your credit is extended without you really asking for it to be extended. That's what happens when you win a title. You just get more freedom to do and say whatever the heck you want to. And even when it seems like something is like bad, like picking up a tech, you know how to spin it and make it work for you. We needed energy. You see what I did there, Bobby? Everything changed.
That was great.
Me. Joe the Manipulator Missoula.
That was great. I want to hear from Malcolm because I want to know how mad he was.
You know what, though? The thing about Malcolm, and we saw this firsthand, and I was told about this even before he got here. He is one of the most politically correct NBA players you will ever see. Like, he can rip you without ripping you. He sounds presidential when he talks. But Malcolm's a good player, though. I mean, I think that's the one thing I think people forget. Malcolm had a really good year when he was in Boston. He's had a really good career. I mean, this is a second-round pick. He's the only second-round pick in NBA history to get Rookie of the Year. So, I mean, he's a good player and had a good run here. It was incredibly short, though. And since then, I wouldn't say his numbers are gotten worse, but the teams he's played for have. And not only did they get worse, they've been among the worst in the NBA before he got there, and they aren't that much better since he arrived. So
it is interesting, though, because, it was like – he says everything. He says the right thing. He seems like he's the type of guy who would have the respect of everybody there. He was a godsend that year. You really needed him. You needed the bench. You needed the bench scoring. And if he were healthier in the playoffs, who knows how things turn out there? I think things ended really poorly for him with that elbow, injury where he was unplayable in the playoffs. And I honestly think that they probably get to the finals if he is healthy there. So that was a tough blow for them, but I don't think anybody gave a crap that he was gone. And I just don't think he ever stuck here in any sort of way. And I guess that's just how it goes there. And that, he's kind of got that rep a little bit where that's just, the guy that he is. So I'd be pretty annoyed. I mean, because
he had a sweet gig there.
He was the starting guy, and he took the bench role. And again, this was another debate we had on our text thread earlier. And I actually I want to bring it back when Bobby comes out here because we're looking at Marcus Smart, and Marcus has really struggled this year. And I really like Marcus, and you like Marcus, and Marcus is like Cornette to me too. I think if the fans didn't destroy it by talking him up into a stratosphere he didn't belong, we would just sit here and celebrate all the things that Marcus Smart did really well. Everybody needs a player like that, and he makes your team better for having him on it, but he wasn't an elite point guard. He wasn't really a starting point guard. He's a great bench guy or a role player or whatever he was. But Brogdon's here, and he's like, I am a starting player. Like, I'm like a borderline all-star, and like I'm starting behind this guy because he's got tenure on me, I guess, or I'm on the bench, and I'll be okay with it. And he did. And then we had a lot of times during the year last year where 2 years ago, it was like, are White and Brogdon the guys who should be closing games and not Marcus here? And I said that 100 times during the year last year, where I think we're doing it wrong. So you had to move something around because Joe didn't know how to manage those guys, and Malcolm was the odd guy out all the time. Sometimes he'd forget about him. He'd only play 18 minutes. He's like, shit, I don't know how to get him back in the game at this point because I'm going to close with these guys or double big in one guard, there was no room for any of them. So there was a real log jam there, and he got lost in the shuffle a ton, but definitely got kind of a raw deal here. But I also just don't think anybody cared. He was automatically, anybody you talk to who covered the Celtics, hey, what are they going to do in the offseason? It was like, well, Malcolm's definitely going to be traded. It was just a one and done, and he was definitely going. Even if they couldn't orchestrate the deals that they ended up pulling off, which they did, he was going. He was going. When he falls through on day one, it wasn't just, they subbed Marcus in for Malcolm because of the injury on the Porzingis deal. It was, he was going to go in a separate deal to somewhere else. He was gone. So Bobby caught up with Brogdon in the locker room, and he played a fine game tonight after the game to talk about kind of facing his old team?
You know, guys get traded every year. I think for teams, a lot of the time it's not personal; it's a business decision. But for players, it is personal. You're uprooting your family at the end of the day. You're moving to a new city. You're having to adjust to a new situation. But honestly, it was a good trade for them, and we'll both be good in the long run.
Was there frustration on your end there at the time?
Honestly, I'm not even in a position anymore where I even talk about it, man. I've made peace with the situation and moved on. I'm in a good place now.
So what was it like just going up against those guys?
Washington. What are you doing here?
You have strong relationships with a lot of guys.
It was good, man. That's the best team in the league right now. So they're the defending champs. There's a reason why. The way they closed the game, they showed it. They got some great players over there, and I got some friends over there. So I definitely enjoy competing against them.
You got my vote. You got my vote, Malcolm.
Yeah,
I'm voting for you.
Bobby pressed him a little.
Yeah, and he handled it like a pro. But I mean, just reading between the lines, it's clear that the fact that he wouldn't even touch what he was feeling at that moment says everything you need to know. He wasn't happy about being traded. Who would be happy about leaving a team that is built to win a title for a team that, for them getting to the play-in game would have been like a major victory. So I get it. I absolutely get it. And to your point, John, that you touched on earlier, I think Malcolm is the one player that if Joe Mazzulla had to examine just figuring out how to get the most out of all the guys that you coach, Malcolm would be the one guy where he probably failed the most with. Because Malcolm could have been so much more of and he was a 6 man of the year guy. So it's not like this guy can play in his league. I mean, Malcolm, people forget it wasn't that long ago. Malcolm was a 50, 40, 90 guy. And that's hard to do. It's really hard to do, which is why so few players ever achieve that over the course of a season. So for him, you got to be feeling when you get traded, like, what the hell else can I do? I accepted a lesser role. I didn't bitch or gripe about that. I'm giving you numbers that's helping us win. And the only knock against me was that I got hurt in going, near the end of the season and into the play. It's literally the only thing that he did in that year that you could easily say was not good. And that gets me traded. But part of why he got traded was because he had value. I mean, he was the one guy that they could clearly move and get something of some semblance of value in return.
And that's the story of Malcolm Brogdon.
And then remember, and Peyton Pritchard was a guy that they were trying to figure out how can we get to see what Peyton can do.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. I mean, and Pritchard wanted out too, so you never knew how they were going to shuffle these deck chairs. It's amazing they ended up with what they ended up with.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna ask a question that's gonna blow people's minds later in the show, but I'm not gonna do it yet because it folds into all of this stuff with this shuffling that we were talking about with Bobby and and Jimmy earlier today. With the guard shuffle and everybody who was out and what you ended up with here and how it would play if things went a little bit differently. So yes, so we're going to play some hypothetical games in a little bit. Real quick, while we're waiting for those guys to join us from Washington, we'll tell you about a couple more of our sponsors here on the Garden Report, starting of course with Prize Picks, and you see it right there. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Great DFS app here where users who sign up right now use that code CLNS, play 5, get 50 instantly. And again, ton of fun and play it in multiple states. Really great action. 2 players or more. Pick some stats. Win up to 100 times your money. It's that easy. A lot of great offers, a lot of great deals on Prize Picks as well. Taco Tuesdays. And I think you've got, there it is, Flex Friday. Right. I think you've also got a special. Oh, it's for Thanksgiving. I'll tell you about it next week. There's a good Thanksgiving special too. Free square for those of you watching football on Thanksgiving, which I know many of you do. So once again, download that app, use the promo code CLNS. And again, super important, if you are going to do this and you are going to join and you support us and help us support our sponsors, that's really great for us. So again, if you are going to sign up, please use that promo code CLNS so they know that we sent you there. Best of luck to you. As we said, you play 5, you get 50 instantly in your account. You don't have to win. That's all you have to do with Prize Picks. And then Game Time, great ticket app there if you want to go check out your favorite show or your favorite sporting event. Great energy in the basketball arenas now with the in-season tournaments, of course, and NHL in full swing. You've got the Patriots and some buzz around Drake May. You want to get in and get those tickets, you go to Game Time, you download the Game Time app, you create an account, use code CLNS, $20 off your first purchase, terms to apply. Again, download that app, code CLNS, $20 off your first purchase, terms do apply. Great features on Game Time, including all-in pricing, so you know exactly what it is that you're paying for the tickets. Great panoramic view from your seat, so you really have an idea what it is you're going to be looking at when you get there. So you see the offer right there. Again, use that code CLNS, $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. And hold on, let me pull this off the screen for us and get us back. So on and on we go here. And I kind of ask a global question for you, Sherrod, because there's really not much you can read into or dissect with tonight's game because it doesn't matter. They were winning this one way or the other. You've talked about the contributions you got from Tillman, Kornet, Keita, but you're now at this point, with the Celtics, 16 games in. I mean, let's call it, 20%. You like comparing it to last year? You liking what you're seeing?
I do.
Is there too much? Let's just show up and see what happens. You have you've got those series of slow starts, those back-to-back 16-2 starts that they've gotten under. Is there any too cool for school stuff going on here, or you think it's very workmanlike, taking care of business?
There's some of that, John. There's no doubt about that, but there's not nearly as much as I thought there'd be. I mean, after 16 games, I thought they would have at least 6, 7, 8 games like that, where you just come away feeling like, gosh, they're playing with their food right now, and you can't do that. They've had I'd say 3 or 4, maybe 5 at the most games like that, which to me is very manageable because they've been able to win most of those games. They've got 3 losses, and they had a chance to win all 3 of those games. They really haven't had that absolute stinker of a game so far. And that's been a little bit surprising to me. I think that they have shown a healthy understanding of what they need to do to win, but not necessarily going all out like they did last year. Like, I thought that there were some games where they could have played at like a B- level and won comfortably, where they were playing at A- level and beating teams by 40 and 50 points. They figured out how to exert enough to win without being lazy about it, which is hard to do. And to me, like I said, they have shown a side of being a repeat champ that we really haven't seen since Golden State.
Yeah.
So
I am excited to see now that I've been corrected, even though the Clippers aren't necessarily one of them, but I am excited to see some Western Conference teams in here because it really is difficult to gauge where you're at against some of these teams right now because the East is in a really funky place.
Yeah.
Like really, really funky right now. Better than it was. There was a period of time where you had like 2 teams with a positive point differential. And it's difficult to tell. I do like what I'm seeing from Orlando, like a lot actually, and the Knicks feel like they're riding the ship, but like there's only 4 teams over 500. I mean, it's insane. The 6th seed is the Bulls at 7-10 right now, tied with the Pistons and the Hawks. These are bottom feeders, and again, everything is upside down because the Bucks and the Sixers are below, below the 10 seed line right now, and the Sixers managed to win tonight, and so we have some Embiid news we're going to share a little bit later and talk about on the show as well. But like, I want to get in here. I mean, you have one crack at Golden State, you lost. I want to see some of these teams right now. Minnesota, things aren't going great right there. You got some sniping and some bickering in that team, and again, you got 2 teams with the Knicks and the Timberwolves that made a trade that so far can't tell if it benefited either side yet, but I definitely want to see what they, how that stacks up a little bit in some actual competition, because it's been so bad right now. It's like, again, we joke about showing up just with the uniform on and winning, but like
it's real
right now with the, I mean, these teams are ass right now.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle a team like the Timberwolves, who, even though they haven't had the kind of start to the season many expected, they're still a good team. Anthony Edwards is still a problem for a lot of teams. And Naz Reid, whether he's starting, coming off the bench, he's been a really high impact player. And then you throw DiVincenzo and you throw Randall in the mix as well. So they got some good players over there. And, the Clippers, as long as Ty Lue is their coach, that team is going to play hard, and they're not going to just roll over and play dead. That's just not who they are. So, and to your point, John, at some point you need to start beating some of those teams out west, if for no other reason, just to validate yourself as one of the better teams in the NBA, because you're beating the crap out of teams in the East. Guess what? Everyone is beating the crap out of teams in the East. So that in itself doesn't make you special, doesn't make you unique. Beating teams like the Clippers, beating teams like the Timberwolves, teams that are going to play you hard, teams that you can't just show up and expect to win and anticipate winning. Those are the kind of games I think the Celtics, they're at that point in the season where you need to see how they fare against better competition. So this comes at a really good time, I think, for them in their continued growth and just really trying to build momentum towards finishing this season out strong.
Yeah, it's amazing we're talking about finishing the season strong after 16 games, but this is kind of where you're at. It's let's go,
Yeah.
let's get moving.
Yeah.
Let's get to the next thing, because it's
this is a shit show.
I can't take many more Wizards games.
No. And the thing about it, it's not like the Wizards are the exception. In fact, the majority of teams are built not built like, but they give you the similar pushback and similar challenge that the Wizards do, which isn't a whole lot. There's only maybe 2-3 teams in the East that you feel you're probably going to have to play really well against. And the Celtics, when they played the Knicks right out the gate, they handled them pretty easily. Then you've got Orlando, who we still don't really know what they're about. And then the Cleveland, previously undefeated, their only loss was to Boston. So it's they've done well against the teams that are good, but let's see what they can do against some of those top teams out west.
Yeah, and I think Bobby's trying to make his way in here, so I want to hold on I'm sending our producer Jackson a note here. You're going to get Bobby in here and get his take. He was in the locker room talking to some players as well. Bobby, thumbs up. You good to join? Yes, no, maybe so. Nope, he's gone. We had him.
Where'd he go? Damn it.
We had him.
Damn it, Bobby.
We'll get him back in a little bit. But yeah, I don't know what to make of the Eastern Conference now. And it is interesting because we talked about this a little bit last time. You might be looking at a changing of the guard here with some other teams coming up that, you might not have necessarily thought, but we'll see at the end of the season. It could all kind of look the same. We're bringing in Bobby Manning here as he's trying to get himself set. Bobby, tough game to we gave Luke his love, and we'll get to it in a little bit, because I do think that changed the energy tonight for sure on what was a pretty sleepy game. But just give us your overall take here out of the gate.
Yeah, I thought my big takeaway is that these teams that have speed, athleticism, youth give them trouble. They got beat up the floor a lot in this game. The Wizards were quick to get to the interior, quick to get shots off. I just thought they beat them throughout the periods that they did in this game with speed, aggressiveness, just playing fast. And whether that was Celtics malaise or tired legs or whatever it might be, it was similar to the first game, right? So I don't think this was a one-off here where you're struggling with this kind of opponent. We've seen in different spots. Toronto, I thought, athleticism, speed, that sort of thing. It's something I said going into this year could be the only weakness with this team at full health, is that they're a little older, they're a little less athletic. You've talked about this, John, compared to some of the most athletic teams in the league. Yeah. So that's where teams can catch them sometimes, on the boards, in transition. Celtics will actually days ago with the ball and all that too. And they had to go through a bunch of different lineup changes in this game. But this kind of team can bother them. Maybe not beat them, but we saw with Indiana last postseason. That was the mold of a team, the style of a team, speed-wise, skill, athleticism. That can push this team a little bit. So there's another example tonight, I thought.
Yeah. Hi, Noah.
How's it going, guys?
What's your takeaway
from the whole game? I don't know. I think they came out so flat, and you have to think that maybe the weird circumstances, the White House visit, all the just the buzz around it and everything. They didn't look focused from the beginning, and then they were kind of trying to find their way and did enough, but certainly was not the most inspiring performance. And just like I don't know, I've never seen so many air balls by like a really good basketball team. It was kind of making me feel better about myself. I was like, okay,
so I looked it up.
These guys are.
Yeah.
Tatum's worst game without a 3 was 0 for 8. So this was pretty substantial new blow for him in terms of 3-point shooting.
So I'll ask this because, like I said, it's not worth making a big deal about it. If I were the Celtics, I also would not have cared about playing in this game tonight. So like you can't blame like having lulls against teams that like. This game is almost unlosable, so like it's really hard to, that like you only need like 5 good minutes. You're not even a full quarter, honestly, to win a game like this, unless the Wizards shot the lights out and put them in a hole where they were chasing them. But like, why keep doing the thing that's clearly not working once it's not working? You know what I mean? I know the philosophy. I don't want to go all Gary Washburn here on like, Joe, did we shoot too many threes tonight just because they didn't go in? But like, when you can do whatever you want, and if you just choose to impose your will, like it's almost frustrating to me that Tatum's last 3 buckets were all catches closer to the paint, 2 in the post.
Actually, that big one from White.
Yeah, it's like. Just go there and just get an easy bucket. Yeah, like one of them, Joe called it. That was a set play to get him a touch in the paint. Because even Joe's like, stop catching the ball out there and ISO and just trying to hit the 3. Get in the lane and like get an easy one. And then you see how easy that is. I always find that head scratching. It bugs me a little. And Brown took it upon himself. He still jacked 13 threes, but also a lot of them were open. Like he just wasn't hitting them. But he's like, oh, screw this. I'm just going to be Jaylen Brown and just go. It's like nobody's getting in my way here, and he just did it. So like assert your will when you need to over the worst defensive team in the history of basketball. Like when you have this, just take the easy buckets. Like if I'm playing my daughter in one-on-one, like I could try to shoot a bunch of threes, but if I want to score points, I'm just gonna back her down.
Absolutely.
It's like if I really want to win the game, I'm just gonna back her down and just shoot over the top. So like,
too little.
Why not do that? Right? Too small, Esme. Why not do that?
And Jaylen, I thought, did that.
Jaylen did.
I mean, Jaylen realized that, my goodness, they can't guard me at all. So
I thought Jaylen was so important in this game. Yeah, one of those ones where when he was missing for those handful of games, you didn't feel their physicality inside offensively. You didn't feel their ability to go through bigger bodies like Sarr and Valanciunas and be able to finish in that area.
He was salivating when he saw Sarr.
So he was super important in this one. Obviously, Luke gave them a change of pace too in terms of the lineups they were running out there, and just some physicality on the offensive end. Like I do like when Joe talks about you can be physical defensively, but you got to be physical offensively too. This game called for it with all the missed threes, and again, a game where you're missing a million threes, you got to be able to get on the offensive glass, and whether it was Cornette or some of the wings getting in there later in the game, Pritchard had one too. They needed that badly to turn this game around here as well. So it was good to get a look at Luke being out there with the starters again. I thought that was a good look to start the year. We'll see which way they end up going now, because I think it's been a few
subtle, very subtle.
Well done, Bobby.
Yeah,
well done.
It's been a few spot starts for Kata in a row where he's not quite getting the team off to the right start, or he's not quite in sync enough with that starting group. That
2 is not a
few. It ends up being the right moves.
2 is a couple. You need 3 to be a few. Yeah. Okay.
So we'll see what happens there. Good to get X back in the mix too here. Like I thought he looked okay defensively, and then you go very small at the end there for that closing.
Oh, the microphone!
Something you've always wanted to say.
Yeah. Go ahead, Noah.
No, I was just going to say, I think the reality is, John, that you're right about the 3-pointers. Jaylen Brown talked about it post-game. It was too many 3-pointers. He settled for too many 3-pointers. He said they all did. This is their Achilles heel. Like sometimes I think because it's worked for them, and because Yeah, they've won a championship on this premise. And so I think sometimes you take a principle and you maybe run it into the ground or misinterpret it and not really realize that you're not really executing upon the real principle of the offense, which is taking the right shot and taking the easiest shot. And sometimes the three-pointers that they take are not the easiest shots. And so, yeah, I think that it's one of those games where they've had many of these over the last few years. It's not anything completely new. It's just this was one where it was super obvious and it was super clear when Tatum had the advantage in the post, and he was 6 for 9 from beyond in front of the 3-point line. So it's like he was fine offensively outside of shooting threes. And so it's just one of those things. I think they're going to continue to have games like this. Sometimes they're going to get away with it. Once in a while, they're not going to. But in reality, is they're very rarely going to shoot as inefficiently as they did today. 23% from three and to still win. I know it's the Wizards. I know they haven't won in a while, but it's, they were able to overcome quite a bit here. And my favorite thing about this game is that I think Joe was willing to go with different combinations in guys, Jordan Walsh in the first quarter, Xavier Tillman down the stretch, because he was just like, this is not working. I want to go with other guys on the bench. And I hate when we don't get to see those guys, when it's like you have to go with the guys that have gotten you there. And I like that he mixed it up a little bit down the stretch and gave guys an opportunity.
Yeah,
They were 38%.
That's my favorite thing about the entire year from Joe, I will say, Noah. Going back to, I just want to, Bobby, before you jump in, are you in trouble?
No, I just have to go somewhere with a plug, but I'm all good.
Okay. That's been my favorite thing with Joe all year, and that goes back to who's doing that? Is someone fiddling with the mic? I just keep hearing thumping. Anybody? No. Okay. So we said it earlier in the year when they're like, why wouldn't Joe, when somebody's out, just say, okay, you're that person today? You know what I mean? And like then when Hauser went out, he did it with Walsh and he put him in there, and it was like, oh my God. And then he saw something from Keita and then he gave him minutes, and we're like, oh, Joe doesn't do that either. I think he's done that tremendously this year, which we were begging for last year in that whole Banton Stevens, O'Shea kind of, are any of these guys going to help? Like, you didn't know because he wasn't trying different people or settling in on stuff. And then he just wouldn't play anybody for a while. And like, you might have missed opportunities to see whether you had something in somebody. I love that he's rolling out Keita, whether or not he's working or not, and then saying, well, no, I'm going to go with Luke in the second half, and not sticking with it. You see a lot of coaches do that, which is like you have a starting lineup that doesn't work at all, and you roll it back out to start the second half, and it's like, oh shit, it didn't work again. And he's much quicker to switch things up here. Tillman hasn't done anything in what? When was his last? October,
yeah.
And then he just pulls him in there, and again, defensively, he had a couple of blocks, missed a couple of bunnies, but he contributed. Like Tillman's energy mattered, I think, in tonight's game.
And it was still a game at that point, yeah. So it was a risky-ish decision.
Tillman's still in the game, like 5 minutes left when it's close. Like that, he's still in there. So like, I love that he'll do that. Like there's enough. What's interesting is, not all of these guys are playable in all situations, but there is enough faith in Joe to use them throughout. Remember the first time when Keita was getting minutes, and all of a sudden you're like, he's closing the game with he gave Keita a rest in the fourth quarter to bring him back to close the game. It was like, what? Like that wasn't stuff that you would see before. You'd always go with the safe lineup. And now he's trying different things, closing games with Pritchard. So I think that's a good part. That's a cool part of Joe's
back
evolution.
To the last game too.
Just wanted to double down on what Noah said there. I think that's been definitely something noticeable from Joe this year. That's a little bit different. He's flexible.
Yeah, and you look back at last game too, for all the rage it caused in the chat. They went with Keita for that long second half stretch to just see what he could do, and that could have cost you a game. What they did tonight could have cost you a game, but just like last year, it really hasn't. They end up making enough plays. Brown and Tatum are good enough down the stretch to be able to carry you through, and that should make you all the more comfortable with doing it. And I felt like tonight it was because Walsh got like the next man up in the rotation minutes with Horford out. Those didn't go great, so I think that's what more led to Tillman next to Keita initially before they ended up throwing Tillman in at the 5, which is where I actually like him the most. I don't want him getting stuck out in the corners. I don't want him trying to figure out what he's doing.
I hate the double big lineups with Tillman.
With Tillman specifically, yeah.
And there was a
So-
period there where I was a little bit nervous with the Jalen double big lineup. I was like, this could, and Hauser, I was like, this could go sideways. And it didn't, because Jalen went into a little bit of takeover mode there, which I thought was great. Other observations for tonight, guys? Because I got a couple other things we wanted to hit on as well.
I know I was just going to say, I think, we touched on the Xavier Tillman piece, but just from a team morale standpoint, every single player except for Jaden Springer that was here tonight played. And I think it's just Tillman has been really locked in on the bench. He's been really positive and energetic, but it's just good for everybody to know, like, the stay ready thing is real. It's not just a mantra. Like, you really might check in tonight. I'm sure he had zero heads up. I remember during the finals last year, right before Tillman played, I asked him, like, you have any idea if you're going to play? And he's like, we have no idea ever. Like, we just have to be ready to go. And then the next game he hit that 3 in game 3. So it's like, I think it's just a good reinforcement. And then the two ways were all in Maine today. Shout out JD Davison, 36 points, 11 assists.
Yeah.
Have to get that in there. But yeah, I think it's cool that everybody that made the trip and that was sitting on the bench today was, in and out. Everybody was sweating. Everybody was in their uniform.
Do you guys find that interesting that Joe doesn't tell people what they're going to do? Because, like, that's the type of thing that drives some people insane. Like,
I love it.
And when things aren't going well, and I do too, but most people and most professional athletes hate that.
They do. And
especially baseball players who are the softest people in the world. Like, I got to know if I'm coming in the 7th or 8th inning. Like, shut up. Just sit there. It's an undetermined. It's 2 hours and 10 minutes after the game started in either instance. Like, there's not like a time. It doesn't matter. You're sitting on your ass for 2 hours. When does it matter if you're coming in the 7th or the 8th? But, like, some people, like, really, really want to know, like, I want to know if I'm starting. I want to just play, man. I've never really understood it, but athletes don't like that.
They're creatures of habit. And that, and whenever they feel that habitual routine that they want to be in is disrupted, they become pains in the ass. They're like, look, I'm here to play, so why am I not playing? Because we don't need your ass to be out there in this moment. That's why you're not playing. But you need to stay ready when I do need to call upon you. And I give the Celtics bench guys a lot of credit because for the most part, they've been able to rise to the occasion when called upon. Even in like tonight, I mean, Tillman wasn't great, but he didn't suck when he got out there. It wasn't like he didn't play well because you didn't think he was ready to play. He didn't play great because he missed open shots, because he didn't do the things that his talent would allow him to do. And that's okay, because again, it wasn't like the layoff was the reason why he wasn't more impactful. He just didn't make shots.
Yeah. Noah, you were gonna.
No, I was going to say, I mean, I think some part of the reason why sometimes he doesn't get subbed in is because he doesn't give the heads up, is because he doesn't know. Like, I don't think that there was any game plan to play Xavier Tillman 9 minutes tonight. Like, I don't think that was a matchup thing. I think it was Nemi was really struggling.
Well, he won't even tell guys when they're going to start. Like, Cater's first start,
yeah.
He didn't know.
Right. And I remember, and I think like with last year in the finals, they didn't know. I mean, you certainly benefit when you know. I mean, Pritchard's talked about that quite a bit.
It's weird. It's a weird thing to celebrate.
But see,
that's the kind of thing that, like, that's the
like,
kind of thing, if they were going bad, we'd be like, Joe's got to communicate better. You know what I mean? It's like, it's usually a negative.
But I think the premise of stay ready is you don't know when it's going to come. And Peyton Pritchard, I think the reason he's been able to be so much better in the last 2 seasons is because he does know when his time is going to come. He's talked about it. He knows when he's going to get his touches. He knows when he's going to sub in. It certainly helps, but
I prefer the philosophy. Because it makes sense, right, Noah? Like, you should be ready always, not ready only in this moment. It's like in the NFL, you've got your helmet on the whole time. Like, you're just sitting there waiting, and when the coach says go, you go. Like, that's the point. Like, it's not like you're getting up off the bench and like, oh, let me get my shit. Like, you're sitting there with a helmet on waiting for somebody to go, get out there now, and you sprint onto the field, and you immediately
take off
have
my
a job.
pants.
you immediately have a job to do.
You gotta be fast. I want to see what X looked like when he ran the game. Did you see it, Noah? Was he ready?
No, I didn't. I actually didn't realize he was in, and all of a sudden I was like, is that Xavier Tillman? And I went to the play-by-play. I saw he checked in like 10 seconds earlier, but I was bummed that I missed the momentous occasion of the rotation check-in.
I'm answering this question right here. Do we go live during the game? We don't, but we might. I will tell you more about that at a later date and time. Yes, we might. Bobby, I want to bring something up to you here because, in addition to Cornette changing the general vibe of the game. Apparently, Joe Mazzulla is taking some credit for also changing the momentum and the energy in the game in a question that you asked him in the press conference.
For the first time in a while, came in and gave you guys some energy. What made you go to him, and what did you see?
Not Tillman.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought, he's been working hard, and I felt like the game needed something
After
different.
this.
And those guys were always ready, and we wanted to be a little bit more switching. And the last time we played them, we played him and Luke together, and he did some great things on the defensive end, especially in the Valanciunas minutes. So I just kind of wanted to win those minutes in the fourth quarter, and to credit to him, just kind of working hard, being ready, and I thought he'd give us some good stuff.
Joe, when you picked up the tech in the second half there, what were you frustrated with in that moment? And,
I thought it changed the energy in the arena. Did you feel that?
Yeah.
Feel that?
Well, I was going to ask,
feel that,
in
Bobby?
a moment
Feel
like
it?
that,
Did you feel it?
Do you try to pick one up to energize the guys? Would you even think about, getting ejected to, energize the team in a spot like that?
It wasn't really about energizing the team. I think it was just manipulating the environment. I thought it's kind of what the environment needed at the time, and you just have to, make those calls from time to time. So really, I thought the team was, we were playing pretty good. It wasn't like I needed to do that, but I felt like it was a way to manipulate the environment.
Did you see that? Did you see it, Bobby?
He was so right, though. He's not wrong here. That was such a boring game. There was no energy in the building. Next thing you know, it's the classic Tony Dobbins is holding him back. I locked in. Everybody locked in. He really changed the feel. I don't know, Bobby, if you feel the same. In our little area where we were sitting, we really were talking about how that moment changed the.
Were you getting up out of your seat?
I was hyped.
So, what was the score then?
I don't know.
I guess it was. So they had just given up a three the other way, right? Brown. So I had a really good view of the play when Brown thought he got fouled. He bumped in the SAR, tried to sell it, fell, and they hit a three the other way. And I don't know if there was a no call the other way. I asked him there what he was mad about. I have to assume it was the no call on Jalen or a series of events leading up to that. But the one thing I will say is I do feel like he was trying to get ejected there from what I could see of it. He just kept going and going and going, and it felt like a second tech was going to come.
We're not clowning him for it. It's just the way he responded to Bobby is all that we're making fun of. It's the oldest tactic in the book. You see baseball managers do it all the time. They just get fake mad to get tossed out of a game.
Awesome.
That's not.
And he's never done that.
It's a normal thing. We're not making fun of that. It's just the way that he winked at Bobby for it, and then took all the credit. Did you notice?
Did you see that? Did you see what I did?
Did you see what I did?
Did you see that?
I changed it. I manipulated the environment. I just love
that. So just from what I know about him, and I feel like he wants control of the game. He might not actually like to get ejected, so it might just be a one tech thing. Wake them up in that moment, go a little crazy. They're gonna let you get your word in when you get one tech. So I just love that he points out it was the turning point.
That's what I love. Is do you notice how it's so funny because he doesn't really take credit for stuff, but he was like, "Did you guys see what I did there?" The whole thing cracked me up.
That was such a non-traditional Joe Mazzulla move to actually want the credit cake to himself.
He doesn't do that.
He doesn't do that. So that was cool. I enjoyed that. The best part of the game for me was Joe Mazzulla's post-game presser. Yeah, maybe the only time I'll ever say that.
He spent a little bit of time talking about how to manipulate the officiating. He was asked a little while ago about Tatum complaining, and he was like, "Do you want him to be more in tune?" And he was like, "No, sometimes you have to manipulate the environment." It's been making me watch for it, times where they complain and they immediately get calls back, and it's actually been happening an astounding amount where one of them throws a little tantrum, whether it's Tatum, whether it's Joe, and then a few minutes later, they get some make calls out of it. So I think that but it's just kind of funny that he's been saying it on the record because that's not the kind of thing that he said in the past, but he's been incorporating it into his post-game remarks a couple of games in a row now, some semblance of
Here's the thing though. Every coach complains. Every coach gets texts. Every coach tries to work is he? I think it's just a little too much.
But you know what, Bobby? The difference is this, though.
He's doing his job. That's what you're supposed to do.
He's doing his job, but he's being openly candid about what he's doing his job in that respect. Look, and that's what separates him from a lot of coaches. Because Doc Rivers used to do that all the time. There were games you could see, within the first 6 minutes of the game, that Doc is not going to make it through this game. Chirps a little bit more. You can see the Jedi mind tricks that he's trying to play. And Joe Mazzulla is basically saying, I do the same thing. Look at me. Did you see what I just did in Washington? We were dead men walking for most of that game until I got us all riled up. And next thing you know, we win this game pretty comfortably.
How do you feel about it, John?
What Joe did isn't unusual. It's the fact that he owned it and he claimed it. He took credit for it. That's what makes it different.
I think again,
he's done that a couple of times.
I do think it's. I think it's in every coach handbook in every sport. It's a pretty regular thing to do. For me, it's always the balance of, forget about Joe. In the case of Tatum, what's he gaining and what's he losing by it? Like maybe he'll buy a call later, but maybe it'll also cost him 3 or 4 questionable ones because they're just like, I'm not giving it to him, So like, I actually don't know, because I do think there's a bit of a tipping point in some cases. And I mean, every Celtics fan out there will tell you Tatum doesn't get a superstar whistle, and maybe that's just homerism there, or maybe it's a legit observation where maybe it does feel like he doesn't get as many foul calls as some other people, or he doesn't get the questionable ones. Really, where I think the ones Tatum doesn't get is the not really fouls that other people get called. Right. You know what I mean? So this is what's the hardest thing to stomach with Tatum's complaining is he's not complaining because he got hammered. He's complaining like that's the kind of call a player like me should get. And like, I think refs are like, dude, that was nothing. Like, you're going to give me crap about that. And so he's mad he's not getting the superstar call, not the egregiously missed foul calls. And so I don't know if working the refs is helping him or not, because he's not getting those. He's still, as a superstar in the league for multiple years, first team All-NBA, still not getting the superstar treatment. You have to wonder whether complaining is working to his benefit or not.
Yeah, he's not great at selling those calls either. I mean, and Tatum, when he gets contact, he doesn't.
Everybody knows Luka complains more. I hate having this conversation every time I mention Tatum.
Everybody complains.
Luka's number one by a mile. So just leave it there.
Not even
leave it there. But yes. But Tatum doesn't get the superstar calls.
I don't think complaining's been a problem for them the last year.
Nope, not at all. Not at all. Yeah.
So I mean, again, there's only so many things you can do as a coach to involve yourself in the game, to change the game, that sort of thing. So again, passing grade.
Did you see that, Bobby? Did you see that?
I saw it. I had a nice view of it.
All right, we're gonna put a bow. We're gonna put a bow on this game. We're gonna talk about a couple other non-game related things, but first off, go ahead.
I really like that song.
Yeah, I do too. Go ahead. We can give it. I'm gonna cut the line. I'm cutting the line right now, and I'm giving it to Cornette right out of the gate because I think he deserves it. I'm not gonna let Bobby give it, but I'm gonna absolutely say that he changed the energy in this game when I thought that they were playing, horribly, and it was that really kind of first rotation there, I think, with Luke that kind of turned things around a little bit there. And again, he did enough to earn himself a starting spot. What are you gonna say now? No, are you operating the chat now?
That one was me. That was I never pinned comments, but I had to just in case you missed it.
But yeah. So that's mine. What do you guys got?
I got to double down on Lukey. He was great, man. I mean, this was exactly what you needed from him in this particular moment. The Celtics, he should have won this game with ease, but Luke really gave him that necessary cushion when they needed it, given that separation, and he did it in a multitude of ways. It wasn't just him setting screens and letting other guys shoot. He actually made plays for himself offensively. He did a good job on the boards, and I thought his defense was solid. So this was a good 23 minutes of Luke Cornette we got tonight, and it was a big part of them getting a win.
I can go. I'm going to go with Sam Hauser.
I was going to say,
Celtics
is this going to be
offense?
unanimous? Yeah.
No, Celtics offense was really struggling. Like the starters were down. It was one of those times where they needed the bench to come in, and Luke was part of it. Pritchard was part of it, but Sam Hauser hit his first 3 shots, 2 threes, 1 was off the dribble, and finished with 13 points for a while until the free throws at the end. He was actually like the second leading scorer on the team. after Jalen. So his points were huge tonight. He was important. He seems to be moving better too. But I thought that his offense early on made it so that there wasn't really much of a deficit. Like he hit a couple big ones that, like some clutch shots even early in the game, but really important, I think. So he's mine.
Bobby?
Yeah, I'll go Luke. How could I not?
You can't pass up the opportunity.
Right, and I think it's the right answer. They needed a change.
But no, I got the wrong answer. Okay, I got you.
I'm not.
I ruined his clean sweep. Sorry.
Was that shade? Was that shade I just saw come across the horizon there?
I think that was his game too, and he's starting to move in the right direction pretty quickly here. And they missed the stuff he brought to the table. I was on while he was slowly working his way back there. So his game was important too. The bench as a whole, I mean, they had that awful opening stretch to begin the game, and then the bench came in and gave them like 15 there in the first. So Pritchard, Hauser, Cornette, those three played so well together. So all three of those guys deserve good credit from this game. I do have Holiday here talking about Cornette in a second that I can pull up here.
He was another one that it should have been in the conversation for Brownie too. Drew had a nice game. 16 points. I think he had 4 or 5 rebounds, 4 or 5 assists. Was plus 10, I think, when he was on the floor. Yeah. But that's just kind of what Drew does, though. I mean, that's
you know what drives me crazy?
What?
Like sometimes where Holiday will have one of those like not great shooting games or like only score 4 points, and people are like, man, Holiday's been bad. And like, I'm sorry, like Holiday's never bad. Like he's
he really isn't.
He's just like, look,
you
have a game or two where you're like, what was he doing? Or like just didn't look. He maybe just took some shots where you're like,
it's
I
like
don't
one
quite
every
get
10
that.
games.
But it's like for the most part, like you almost don't have to look at a box score ever. I'm sometimes surprised. I'm like, Holiday had a great game. I look at it, I was like, he had 6 points, huh? He only took 3 shots. That doesn't sound right. Or like, wow, Holiday didn't score much, did he? And then you look and he's got 16. I don't remember 16 points. Like I just remember him always doing Drew Holiday stuff every second of every game. It's like you count on the effort.
You
and
take
him
the defense
being
for granted,
a glue guy and doing all of that stuff. It's just I never have any issue or worry. I mean, and White's in that boat too, but White just has bigger flare-ups with his scoring where you do really notice those games where he's going off because I mean he put in 30 the other night as well. But yeah, it's amazing. You end up for all the we don't talk about Jalen, we don't talk about Holiday. He's a literal rock on a regular basis every single night. He's the same dude.
And here he is talking about Luke. I like this commentary from him here.
Are you putting it on?
Like tonight when you guys were a little off in that.
Here he is talking about Luke. How fortunate.
Luke is just a ball of energy. He makes plays that don't show up on the stat sheet. But when you're out there playing with him, it's like
this is the fight you sent us.
And you want to do that with him.
It wasn't Bobby's question. That was Adam, right?
Yeah, I didn't ask. Ball of energy. It's like going through a wall.
And yet you didn't ask the question, and yet it found its way onto our screen.
Amazing. So
phenomenal, Bobby. Phenomenal.
You're going to be reading about Luke in the Globe.
I have a hypothetical, and this only came up because we were texting about it earlier today. But talking about Bobby's elevation of Luke to this mythical standard that he can't possibly live up to forces people like me to say bad things about Luke, and I don't want to because I legitimately love Luke. And I mentioned that we did the same. I think Celtics fans in general did the same thing with Marcus Smart during his time here because there was an article today. I think it was a Mass Live mailbag with B-Rob just talking about Smart's struggles and how he's going, and then just looking at the numbers, and it's bad. He's had a rough start.
Really
he's
bad.
had injuries, really bad. And you just don't know, as an older guy on a younger team here, what's going to happen and how that's going to turn out. And you feel bad that it's gone in that direction. I kind of made the same comparison, which was like, if we didn't oversell who Smart was, he would have been, and he shouldn't have been such a polarizing player in Boston. I believe he was simply because fans and maybe even media to an extent elevated him to a point beyond what he was actually capable of doing, talking about him as a potential all-star point guard and this one. He was a great role-playing type of guy, and I think that was always his best is sixth man energy sort of guy coming off the bench providing defensive spark. We're talking about like, let's pretend Marcus Smart hadn't gotten traded or somehow found his way back here. What would his role be on the Celtics currently? And the hypothetical question I'm going to ask you is, if Marcus Smart somehow landed back on the Celtics right now, would he be earning minutes over Peyton Pritchard?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. He would.
The answer is no, he would not, but that's okay. Let me hear why.
Because ultimately, big part of their success, and I said in our exchange, is that you lost a lot of stuff with Smart that at the time I had concerns about them losing. You fill in Holiday, who's about as good, if not better, at all those things, plus brings the shooting to the table. So you still keep that versatility defensively that, as Joe reminded us pregame, drove them every bit as much as the offense last year. So I think you need 5 guys in a big spot who can defend, just like you need 5 guys who can shoot. And that obviously became a concern with Smart. But if we're weighing what you're giving up on defense with Pritchard out there in a big spot versus what you're giving up with Smart's lack of shooting, I think you're giving up more with Pritchard defensively in that spot, size, all those things.
Look at shooting. What has Joe proven anything to you in the last couple of years other than if you can't shoot, you can't play for me?
Well, they put Tillman out there again tonight.
I know, but I mean, you're bankrupt at the big man position right now. When Horford's out and KP's out, you're not playing guys because you want to. You're playing them because you have to. If you've got a choice and you've got a guy out there shooting 28% from 3, like these guys were on the same team. In this offense, in this economy, no, I just don't think you can play Marcus Smart. Like I don't know.
It worked for a long time, and Sherrod, I don't know how you feel about
Noah's
it.
take.
Well, here's the thing that we gotta keep in mind here. You're talking about him being back on
Noah's
the team.
got an all-star ballot in her hand right now.
And it does not have Marcus Smart's name on it.
And I'll tell you, it doesn't have Smart on it. It has somebody on it.
Well, you don't even know my Marcus Smart stands, though.
I don't. I'm
Go
curious.
ahead, Sherrod. Go ahead.
What we're working on the assumption that you don't have Drew Holiday, correct? Am I correct in that assumption?
No, you have everybody.
Oh, you have. Oh, well, shit. That's.
Who do you lose? Jordan
He's
Wall?
back on this team today.
Okay, I got you now. I assume
He's
that
team's stacked.
That changes everything.
He's your fourth guard, Sherrod.
Then he's not. No, Pritchard will play over him. I assume that Drew Holiday was not in the mix under your scenario.
No,
if Drew's in the mix,
I just said he just somehow just landed back here, right here on this team.
Pritchard would play over.
Because the reason I pointed out is when he was here, you had a 3-guard rotation with Brogdon, White, and Smart, and Pritchard waiting in the wings and not quite developed into the player he is now. Now you've got Holiday and White with Pritchard as your third. If Smart somehow found his way back here, what would his role be?
He wouldn't
play.
What would his role be? He wouldn't play. He wouldn't play because he's not bringing. At that point, he's not giving you any value that you haven't already have. More than that.
Hey, Holiday and White do the defense already, and they can shoot. Yeah.
What is he bringing you? Seriously, I mean, if you've got the entire team together as it's constructed now, and you add him to the mix, he's not giving you anything that you don't already have. That wins at a high level, and they're better shooters.
Noah,
I mean, I'm at a loss for words. It doesn't happen often. I don't even know what my take is. There's no way he doesn't play. Like this was this is a very good basketball player.
I actually
he played much.
Yeah, he plays.
He wouldn't play like how many minutes a night are you giving him?
I think he actually plays roughly the same minutes as Pritchard, truthfully, in different roles and possibly even together.
10 to 15 minutes for each of them.
It's tough. I mean, his skill set would be duplicative on a team alongside Drew Holiday and Derek White. Like this would be a bad fit for him.
Yeah.
That being said, he would play. There's things that he does like. I mean,
he can pass, he can defend.
I'm a huge Pritchard fan. Everybody knows, but like at the end of the day, like the defensive versatility that you get with Marcus Smart in a playoff environment, I do think might push him ahead of Pritchard in certain situations. I don't know. It's just and then
Go ahead, Noah. Finish. Sorry.
No, I mean, what is he, 30, 32, 33% for his career from three? Like, it's not, I don't know. I don't want
I
to weigh
wouldn't
in on
want
this
him to
question.
come
I
back
hate this
because I
question.
know because I know he.
Why do we have to debate this?
It's a fun because these
are my two favorite Celtics players. Like, I loved Marcus Smart. I loved everything about his game. Like, what you guys
They
don't
were
know.
on the same team, and Smart played 30 minutes.
Yeah,
but that was
2 years ago, not now.
But that wasn't.
I don't get why
what,
Holiday involved either.
What's that?
It's my question, my rules.
Exactly. Under John's rules,
I'm passing on the question.
He's not going to play.
I think he plays the 6-man role. I think it's Pritchard who takes the backseat in that situation.
Can we do a poll on here?
I was going to.
He's not going to play 6-man role, Bobby.
Jackson, you can throw a poll up if you want before the end of the show.
I mean, it is 2025 too.
Yes, Bobby. Let's think about this. It's like you just said. It's 2025. Look at what this team has done with the core group. There's a reason why Wick.
So I guess that could be the swing factor.
He's not a Joe guy.
Pritchard's
That's
grown
true.
a lot.
He's really not a Joe guy.
No, he's not going. He's not going to play. I would hate for him to be brought back here because he wouldn't play. And I do.
Why
think
am I stressed out about this?
I do think.
I feel like I'm like a GM.
I do think Marcus is good enough to help some teams. A lot of teams actually, but Celtics, I just don't think are one of them.
I'm going to lean Smart. I think we've gone off 30, 40 games, whatever he's played with Memphis, through a couple ankle injuries, major missed time. I think we're going too far in the other direction against him. And yes, John, there might have been a mythical status with him here and might have been overrated by many, including myself. But he's still, if you look at the advanced stats, one of the more impactful, versatile defenders in the league. And to me, that's every bit as important as a guy who can give you a boost in terms of three-point shooting and offense and the half-court heaves, which are great.
When you look at his advanced stats, let me ask you this question. What is he giving you that you're not getting now? What does he bring to the table that you're not getting plates and plates and plates of now that you are feeding on every single game? He's not giving you better shooting. He's not going to give you an upgrade defensively, even though he's a great defender, but you already have two of the best defenders on the wing in Derek White and Drew Holiday. What is he bringing to you to the table that is uniquely upgrade from what you have now?
Well, in this situation where White and Holiday are here,
That's
I think point of attack passing, I think great point of attack defense and defensive versatility in the second units, which he did for a while there before he became a starter. So I still feel good about that in that situation. And again, to say the inverse of what Noah was saying there, Pritchard would still play some, I think, in that scenario. But I think Smart would play more.
Like I said, I
love Marcus, but I just totally.
What's your final choice, Noah?
Who would play more?
Yeah.
Come on,
Probably
Noah.
Probably Pritchard.
Was that so hard?
It was. Yeah, I don't feel good about it. Like, if this was clipped and posted on Twitter, I'd be sick. You know.
And I love Marcus, but I just don't think
big headline
with all the people, all the pieces they have now.
Marcus Smart says he wouldn't play a minute.
No, that was Sherrod.
Yeah.
I hate this question, John. But I love it at the same time.
I hate the question, and I hate the retroactive bashing of the Celtics who are out the door.
I don't do that.
Marcus,
you don't, because you got Rob's back.
Yeah.
I just think it's an unfair question because you're saying like it's like saying, okay, add LeBron to this team. Where does he play? Does he play over Tatum and Brad? Like, it's duplicative. You know, it's a guy who has a skill set that we already have.
It is. Like I said, it only came up because we talked about, you know, like we said, is the elevation of the people who were gone for a reason, because you felt like you needed to change things up from those people to get to where you were last year, and then you won a title. And it's just interesting in terms of, you know, the way we talked about it then versus how we talk about it now. You know, 2 years ago, Marcus Smart is absolutely one of the best point guards in the league, and you could totally win a title with him.
And then they got Drew Holiday.
And then they're like, no, we can't. And then we have to do this. So I'm just curious, like, how would it play here? How would we play? Yeah, we should. We'll clip it. Clip it.
As soon as I said that, it felt like it was a mistake.
I think it worked out well for him where Holiday comes in. Everybody knows Holiday. And even he, I think, would say, like, Holiday's smart personified in a different kind of way. But those two guys are
Yeah.
the top of the line of guys you'd want at that kind of role. And
It's
you
fine.
ended up getting the better version of it coming in the door right as he went out the door. So I think it's tough to say that, like, Smart leaving was the key. And maybe he did need a shake up there in terms of personalities and hierarchies on the team and leadership and all that. I think that's all valid. But just strictly taking Marcus's game out the door and not bringing in Holiday, I think would have been tough.
Stop picking on Noah.
Protect Noah.
Stop it. Stop it. Leave
The
her
headlines.
alone.
The headlines are in. So that's fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset people.
First it was me, John. Now Noah's going to catch those strays.
I'm just mad I don't have a good answer. Normally, I feel like I know whenever there's a debate, I have a very strong stance, and I'm not sure my answer here. And that's the truth.
Just throwing it out there. Where last thing we want to hit on because it's happening here. Sixers managed to win tonight, but another bit of news on Joel Embiid, and again, it's just so interesting. Where it's like, I think I'm past the point as like
you love this team.
I'm past the point of as a person who's a Celtics follower of like rooting for bad things to happen. I think I'm almost feeling bad for Philly now. Like Embiid out tonight and then out. So Joel Embiid went from not on the injury report to let's test him out pregame to we're not going to test him out pregame. He's out. Plus he's out next game like that. And again, a little bit of, obfuscating on the Sixers part because he's got swelling in his knee and he's ruled out for two more games at least. And then here we go again. So really interesting developments here with the Sixers who, had their big three play the other day. It didn't really go well. They lost. And then, Embiid sits tonight and they win. But things are getting weird there. And then on top of that, Embiid's on like a hunt to find
this. Is why he needs to take time off.
He's got to. So yeah, it's like he might be faking this injury because he's got to go find the snitch. He's like OJ, I gotta find
Yabu.
I'm with him though. I thought that was ridiculous that somebody in that locker room gave the explicit quotes of what was said in a team meeting 10 hours after the fact. Yeah. That's the big story more than anything that was said.
It always happens though. Like
when your team is losing, yeah,
it always happens.
It always happens when we know about it, but we don't know when it doesn't happen.
Every time you have a team meeting, there's details come out. Like always. Somebody's out there, and they're like,
"I want to know who."
Yeah, it's not always a player.
Joel's gonna find out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he'll figure this one out.
It's like I still want to know who released the pool punch.
The concept of him still figuring out, trying to figure it out is so.
Draymond was gonna find that out, wasn't he?
Yeah,
he didn't get it though.
He went on a search, but unsuccessful.
That's way worse. I mean, that thing gets buried. Everything changed off of that. That's a good bit worse than this. This is a standard. But yeah, it is embarrassing for Embiid. But it's more embarrassing.
Here's the thought, though.
It's more embarrassing to say that you're going to
stay healthy enough to play. Yeah. How about he find out why he can't stay healthy enough to actually play? Let's put our energy toward finding the answer to that question. Why is it that you can't stay healthy enough to play?
I know.
Come on, get out of here with that.
I have to just say, I do think that some of these guys, I know we all hate Embiid here, or Celtics, whatever.
I like Embiid.
I know, but I think that there are certain guys like him, Kawhi, where there is an element of a chronic injury, a chronic health issue, and we don't know what things are looking like behind the scenes. From everything we know about Kawhi, there's not a work ethic issue at all. It's just a literal ability to stay healthy. But it's clear, and it was clear from the beginning of the season that Joel Embiid could not play, that there was something going on with his knee that we didn't know about. And then slowly but surely we're getting more and more pieces of the puzzle, but he probably shouldn't have played at all this season so far if he's now already unavailable for the next few games. He looked terrible when he was playing.
The Olympics, the big one.
Yeah. Something happened. He tore something, he sprained something happened, we don't know what it is, or he had some weird reaction. And I honestly just feel bad for him because it sucks. It sucks to not be able to stay healthy. I don't know if his work ethic's right. Obviously we have reason to believe that maybe he's not the epitome of all the things you hope from your superstar from a ethics standpoint, or not ethics, a work ethic standpoint. But I do feel bad for him. I don't want it to just be he's lazy.
I
So he's
feel
injured
bad a
kind of
little.
thing.
I mean, people forget in the pre-draft process, Embiid suffered an injury where it's like most people think it's like not his foot, but like that navicular is a killer injury, and like that ends.
He missed
careers.
2 years, right?
That ends careers. That's a really difficult thing. It doesn't necessarily heal. I have that. But like that killed Bill Walton's that hobbled Bill Walton his entire career. It's not so like, and he's had the back, but also, I mean, you can question whether his all of those injuries make it harder for him to maintain peak physical condition in addition to being 7'3" and just a large guy in general. But like, he doesn't really look like he's ever in shape. He does get gassed. And, I think some people kind of question work ethic based off of that more so than the injury prone stuff. And you also do wonder, well, if you were a little bit lighter and leaner and, in better shape overall, might you not suffer as many of these injuries here? And again, it's hard to say. It's hard to say.
I give him a big break on the Simmons stuff too. I mean, he caught some flack for that, and it's like, what can you do with what was going on there? So that was a disaster. Faults. The organization's to blame for a lot of this stuff too, obviously, here in terms of how they've managed everything over the years. So I like him. I like his game. I like the way he's come back from all that. And for a couple of years now, he's had a battle himself when Harden quit and Simmons quit, and he's still out there playing hurt in the playoffs a year ago. I have nothing but love for Embiid, despite whatever antics people don't like about him here. And I hope he can get back and give this team a real chance, because without him, they're done. They're not making the playoffs without him. And with him, it looks like even right now, the way they've started, they might be a playing team. And, it's interesting, John, because the way it's stacking up, if they have to make like a late mad dash in the year, they could be like a 7 or 8 seed like they were last year, and you might be looking at them round 1.
That was the fear last year. You didn't really want to face a fully healthy Sixers team as an 8 seed. I don't think they were beating the Celtics no matter what, but that's not your typical 8 seed here. And I feel like they're kind of back in that boat here. So we'll see what happens, but we've covered most of it here. We're back with the Minnesota Timberwolves on Sunday, which is fun. I'm kind of looking forward to some Western Conference opposition, because I can't.
Those 2 games were electric last year too. Between those two, it's a little different of a team in Minnesota now, but should be a good one.
And then Ant crapped all over JT. So I'm kind of curious what happens there. Yeah,
maybe we'll ask about it this time, John.
Yeah. Apparently, this is something they want me to talk about.
Bill. I love that.
So that happened.
I love the storyline.
Did you ever?
This is the most interesting thing that happened tonight.
Wait, what is it, Noah?
This is the most interesting story that happened tonight.
What is interesting? What is going on?
Well, Jalen tweeted a while ago that he wanted to meet Bill Nye. It was so random, but everybody loves Bill Nye. And then he was at the game. They kept showing him with the jumbotron. He was doing the towel. He had a great stage presence about him. And then after the game, he met him and he was gushing about him post game. That was the happiest I've seen Jalen take a question in a minute. He was talking about how much he taught him STEM and the impact that he had on him, how excited he was to. So he was honored to meet this guy. So it was pretty cool. As a big Bill Nye fan, I thought it was cool.
Yeah, anyone our age, this guy is huge.
Yeah.
You would have class every year, and if they didn't want to do a lesson that day, they were putting on this guy, and he was just making you laugh, teaching you stuff, keeping you engaged. If you were having a normal class, you were falling asleep, you weren't caring, but if they threw on his show, you were locked in.
The
intro was great.
Yeah.
Bill Nye the Science Guy. Bill. That was great. I love him too. I should have went and taken a picture with him.
Well, that happened tonight. So Celtics got their win. On top of that, the
Jackson agrees.
The Hawks lose. Which means the Celtics automatically advance with a win over the Bulls. If the Cavs beat the Hawks, you still have 3-3-1 team possibilities here. So point differential could come into
Who
play.
the Hawks playing? Hawks got the Cavs. It's gonna be tough Friday afternoon.
Yeah. I don't know that that's right there, because is that going to be because one of those teams will have 2 losses. So if the Celtics win, I think they're just in.
Yeah, well, I think if Cleveland wins,
Well, the Hawks are undefeated.
Not anymore.
No, they lost tonight.
Oh, they lost tonight?
Yeah.
So I don't know that this is right. I think one of those teams is going to get 2 losses. So the Celtics win, they should be in there as a 3-1 team.
There's some weird tiebreakers with this too. If there's like a group tie and a wild card tie, so
But if Cleveland wins, though, then the Celtics will be tied with Cleveland, and Celtics win the head-to-head. So
I think that's where you get the group winner, and then it's the wild card that comes down to point differential. But they ran it up tonight, and that was important. So that's going to help them because they had a loss to Atlanta. The win over the Cavs was what, by like 5?
I'll ask you guys. Noah, I want your take first. Is Marcus Smart? No, I'm just kidding.
Come on.
Come on. How does the Sherrod hates the point differential thing. What are your thoughts?
It was annoying tonight. I don't know what was happening tonight because that wasn't point differential because the Wizards were fouling. Whatever it was towards the end there, whatever made.
Joe called the timeout. Joe called the timeout with like.
Then Joe leaned in.
Yeah.
I don't love it, but I don't really.
I
care.
love it.
I just think the tournament is like it's reaching like a third of its potential. Like I'd love to do like a presentation on how to revamp the tournament because I feel like
that's a tough part.
A little bit going on.
There's some adjustment that needs to happen. I know Fisher reported today that like they were trying to get European teams involved and expand and all that. And I love that. Like it needs to expand into something bigger than what it is. But for some reason or another, and we've talked about it, John, like these games end up they're close. Both teams end up really getting into it. The point differential thing. Remember Donovan and Missoula fighting last year over it, and they're fouling. It just creates this wacky environment, and no one seems to know whether it matters or not. And everyone shrugs their shoulders. But then when they're in it, they're like, oh, like let's go, let's win this thing. So like I asked Holiday after the game, like, did you guys regret missing out on Vegas last year? Like looking back on it, he was like, yeah, we were like ready to go, we were packed. Like they were bummed that they didn't go because like once you're in it, you want to go get it. And even Joe, who I feel like is as low on this as anyone from what I can gather. But when he's in it and there's a chance and they have to play to the rules, he does it too. Just like tonight, just like against Chicago last year. So all it does is just throw a wrinkle in what would be Celtics Wizards November 22nd. And if that's all we get out of it, I'm for it.
I think they need to make the games more contained. Like, I'm embarrassed to admit, I didn't know today was a cup game until we got to shoot around and people kept asking about it. And I was
once you see the court, the pink court,
once you see the court, but like I'm a Celtics reporter and I didn't even realize the cup was coming up today. Maybe that's on me, but I feel like it should be like the cup 2 weeks and every game is the cup and it's like everybody knows about it and then you go back to something else. The way that it's kind of interspersed is like there's a cup game, there's not a cup game. The average person is not
and Fridays.
Know. Yeah, I don't know. I think the average person's not going to be like, it's Friday, it's cup day. Like I'm locked in tonight. Like you turn on the game and you're like, oh, what is that for? Oh, it's the NBA Cup. You know, like I think that's the general experience. I would like it to be more contained, like a tournament style thing where like, the season pauses, you have the tournament.
I think that makes the most sense. You do have to you have to pause it and just do it self-contained.
That's what Joe said.
It makes sense. I know, and Joe's idea of like the multiple tournaments, like I get it. You're trying to kind of do what they do in Europe with the Champions League and things like that. And like, you know,
I'd love for them to play other teams. I know everyone thinks they just kill those teams, but like, imagine if they lost.
No, I think it'd be cool. It's just like, can you motivate them enough to care about it? Because like that's the whole thing is like if you start something new and say like, so this is a new thing and you're going to win a championship and you're supposed to care, they're like, but I don't. Like it's not a thing. I didn't grow up caring. But like you enter European soccer and you're like, Champions League is the biggest friggin' deal in the world. You're working all year long to finish in the top 4 in your league so you can qualify for it and play and all like that stuff matters. Like it's a big deal. It's just you can't convince somebody something is important just because you're like, we're calling it a cup, you know, like it's really hard to click over, you know, like, but I love the concept. I think it'd be cool as hell to have them play like Real Madrid in hoops and like, you know, give us the 4 best European teams and the 4 best NBA teams and do something.
You got
I think it'd be awesome.
But does that diminish the value of winning an NBA championship? Because if you're playing teams from Real Madrid and places like that, winning that tournament is actually winning a world championship because you're playing the best teams in the world. So does the NBA championship all of a sudden lose some of its value and luster because you're just beating the best teams in North America?
Yeah.
If that cup, if you bring in international teams.
Like John said, you grow up, everyone knows the finals, everyone knows NBA champion. Like, that'll always have its luster. You have to find a way to add some luster to the mid-season tournament, however you can do that. And I think that's the way to do it.
It's lacking a little, but I think, the self-contained is probably step one. We'll see
I love the idea of the team that wins it making the playoffs, too, because, like, it feels like these Pacers-type teams or the Hawks or Pistons, like, those are the teams that seem to be, like, in the thick of it. Lakers last year were, like, a weird case, but I would love for the team that won it to have whatever seed it ends up being a playoff spot. I think that's fair. I don't think that devalues the regular season too much, but they're never going to do that. So let's get Europe involved.
It makes those games more valuable. Absolutely.
Right.
It makes.
So anyway, thank you guys for watching along. We do appreciate it. I know we went a long time on a shit game, so I guess we're fine.
No, it was a cup game.
Yeah. Quick shout out to our sponsors again. Check out Prize Picks. You want to get in on the action, use the promo code CLNS. If you're a new user, play $5, get 50 instantly. You do not even have to win. Once again, Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It is that easy. Game time. You want to get in on the action, go check out your favorite teams, watch a cool game, check out a concert, whatever it is. You can't get tickets, go to Game Time, download that app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. And Built, earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbuilt.com/garden. Once again, joinbuilt.com/garden. The Celtics win an all-important NBA Cup game, run up the score a little bit at the end, defeat the Washington Wizards 108-96 to move to 13-3 on the season. The Wiz, 2-12. Another one of those for those guys. Cooper Flag. We'll see you in the nation's capital, maybe. But that's it, Bobby. Noah, I'm sorry, I didn't even get a chance to ask you, and give us, your White House experience. How you were there, you got to take it in. How cool was it?
Well, I almost didn't get in, John.
It was thrilling.
Really?
Yeah, I made a mistake with the form, so I almost didn't get in, but made some
Bobby
calls.
walks in at the buzzer.
Really?
Made some calls, fixed some things up, and then ended up getting in. But it's cool.
Security clearance denied.
That clearance is a bitch, Bobby.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the experience of just being there and seeing the whole thing, and it's obviously pretty cool. It was short and sweet. There wasn't a ton to it. The speech I thought was solid and funny, and Jalen got a kick out of the Biden stuff. So you had these fun tidbits. We're asking them all about it after. You get the visuals of them inside and some funny stories and stuff. So I think it's a cool part of the whole thing, and we'll see what happens here next handful of years if it continues. But just being there, like, that's something you gotta do if you have the opportunity.
Yeah.
I thought it was just goofy. Like, it wasn't honestly like a great reporting opportunity. There wasn't like much going on. It was hard to see. It was
that's what Noah cares about.
No. But I was getting to the other part. But I thought that it was fun. I felt like I was a kid. I felt like all the reporters, we were all like just being friends. Like, it was fun. I had a good time. We all took a bunch of photos. I was taking like Gary
and then
Washington
the big Mike Zarin interview.
We're all just like hanging out. Everybody came. There was so many reporters at this Wizards game. So I thought it was just like a fun little excursion.
A field trip.
I almost felt like we were on a class field trip. Yes, exactly.
It looked to me like a field. Everyone took their pictures behind the
Instagrams. I was like, this is so fun. We're all like,
and you had to dress up. That wasn't optional this time.
Yeah.
Yep, that's true. Yeah, people that never dress up came in suit and tie, so that was funny too. Yeah. I also had to wait outside for 2.5 hours because I missed like the first boat that was going in. So, because I was distracted talking to somebody. So I also watched every single person come in one by one after every 15 minutes, like in their suit and tie. So I felt like I was watching like a big reveal. So I had a good time.
Now, that was a good video opportunity.
Which one?
Everybody, their runway into the White House.
I should have.
Jay, Adam,
Yeah.
Jay.
And everybody had this like extra pep in their step, you know. They were like just rolling up to the White House. You could feel that they were like excited to be there.
Yeah.
Playing it cool.
Yeah. Well,
Awesome.
Cool experience. For next year will be awesome. When they win it again. It'll be a great trip. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. We do appreciate you hanging out this late with us. As we said, Wizards game, not a ton of juice here, but always fun to talk with Noah and Bobby and Sherrod. Even if we ask difficult questions, Noah doesn't want to answer. That's fine. But also fun chatting with you guys. So thank you guys for hanging out and being lively and into it. We will see you again on Sunday. It's a 3:30 game, so we should be up around 6 o'clock. We'll see you then.
Wait, Amit's got an outro for us, I think.
No, he doesn't.
He said he was going to work on an outro.
He had a phenomenal game.
Phenomenal game.
Forfeit's out. I think it's an auction. That did not sound like a chair.
It was a freaking chair. It does sound like a chair.